Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melisa Caprio.
Hey guys, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. How is everybody who's listening doing today? I hope you guys are doing well. It's Wednesday. I love doing my show, so thank you so much for joining me today. I have author and podcaster Jessica West as my guest, and she's going to join me in just a few minutes. I want to give a shout out to all my regulars. Thank you so much for listening to my show and sending me messages that you like it and you love my guests. I really appreciate that. And if you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. I hope you keep coming back. And just so you know, if you miss a live show, you can always catch one on the replay on OMTimes radio. They have a podcast, and I also put it on my page, Postcards to the Universe, as a podcast. So you can always catch the shows anytime you like. A little bit about me, if you are new to listening to my show. I'm an artist, I'm a photographer, and I am also an author. And I have a book. It's titled, same name as my show, Postcards to the Universe. But it's the added part is Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And in my book, I have 30 manifesting stories along with photographs I took of the contributors, which I call manifesting postcards. And a manifesting postcard is kind of like a focused down vision board. People send them to me, and when their manifestation becomes a reality, I photograph them. And there's 30 of those examples in the book. And also in my book, I have a bunch of writing exercises or journaling exercises, and it helps us get clear on those things that we want to manifest, you know, in the main areas of money, love, health, career. You know, we always want more abundance in those areas. But there's so much more. I have a bunch of fun games and tools to play in manifesting more money and better health. And it was so fun to put together. So if you're interested, I would love it. And just go find the book on Barnes & Noble or Amazon and your local bookstores. If they don't have it in stock, they will order it for you. Each week, I ask people to send me a manifesting postcard. I'm getting them in the mail. I love getting them. I'm like a kid in a candy store when they come. So if you want to know how to create one, you can find out all that information on postcardstotheuniverse.com. I tell you how to create one. There's an address listed on there of where to send it. And also, if you sign up for Join My Movement, you get a free 8-step manifesting guide as a free gift. And also a postcard, it's even more in depth about how to create a manifesting postcard. So yeah, I hope that you join me. Let's see. So each week I have been sharing, because this is something I just started doing. It's basically new. I used to do them before COVID, but COVID kind of threw a wrench into everything. But I started doing a workshop. It's an online workshop. It's called Manifesting Through Gratitude, A Visual Journey. And it runs Thursday evenings, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it's a 5-week start to finish course. And it's about living a grateful and creative life, which is about following our hearts and embracing more of the things that light us up from the inside. It's about seeing all the wonderful things that we already have in our lives. Many times we forget, I'm guilty of it too, to see what is right in front of us. And by finding the courage to prioritize, nurture, and express our creativity, we add more play and joy in our life, and we get to experience that which we love and cherish in greater depth. And then what happens is the universe has a wonderful way of surprising us with even more magic. So in the workshop, we're going to cover living in gratitude by using writing exercises and doing a daily visual gratitude practice and I wanted to incorporate this, being a photographer myself, and I do this by using our camera phones because it'll help us get into alignment with the energy of abundance. So each section, we're going to focus on a different area of our life to be grateful for. Week 1 focuses on worthiness and self-love. Week 2 covers health and wellness. Week 3 looks at our money story and financial abundance. Week 4, we go into our personal relationships, romantic, family, friends, coworkers. And the final week, we're going to be dedicated to a personal check-in, sharing our experiences, what comes up for us, and of course, an open Q&A. And there's always going to be an open Q&A at the end of each section, so we can always talk about whatever's coming up. I have a lot of creative projects and fun photo prompts that will help us shift our thinking and start living in gratitude. And each week I'm going to give homework. I give homework, which is using our camera phones and also making a manifesting postcard for each section of the course. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a lot of hands-on work. And at the end of it, you're going to have a beautiful visual gratitude journal. And you can find out more about the workshop if you go to Postcards to the Universe. There's a link for workshop, and it takes you to finduniquelyyou.com/Melisa Caprio and sign up. I would love to see you there. So another thing that I do and I talk about each week is I share a magical message that I post on social media, and it's an image of a manifesting postcard. So what I just started doing is I'm re-photographing the postcards that are in my book because I decided to read my book. Just read the book from start to finish. And I'm posting videos. I'm trying to keep them. There's going to be a lot of them. I'm trying to keep them like 5 minutes so they're not too long, and I'm going to have them numbered and so people can follow along. And the first one I just did this week was Terry's story, and her book. Her story is about love, and it's we meet in the space and time we created lifetimes ago. Our knowing reflected in our eyes. From that moment, we create a story of love and beauty in Spain and Portugal. I'm here, I'm waiting, I'm ready for this chapter to begin. My deepest gratitude. So her story is the first story in the book, and each week I'm going to be doing each person's postcard over again, photographing it again, and I'm going to be reading their stories. So you can find that on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. I'm posting the videos there, and YouTube. So, okay, just wanted to share all that with you guys. And now to bring out my guest, Jessica West. Jessica West was involved in a serious motor vehicle accident and had sustained several fractures, lacerations, and a traumatic brain injury. The paramedics and doctors did not expect her to survive. However, one by one, she had defied the limitations placed upon her. Despite being filled with the physical, emotional, and cognitive challenges, her healing journey offered great insight and perspective, leading her on a path of self-discovery, personal development, and mindset work. Through it all, she learned to harness the power of the spirit-mind-body connection, which empowered her to keep moving forward. And this is a quote from Jessica. I have a burning desire to share what I've learned through my journey with the world and to offer others the avenues to empower themselves to have a life worth living on their terms. I do this through sharing inspirational messages on my podcast, Empower From Within, with empowering interviews and my coaching program. I share parts of my journey in my collaborative book, Manifesting with Purpose. I am passionate about helping others overcome their limitations, improve their self-image, and begin living their most fulfilled life. Now, I was a guest on Jessica's show, Empower From Within, and you can find that on all the podcasting platforms. It dropped on July 26th. So for more about her, if you visit her website, I'm just going to spell it for you. Well, I'll say it and then spell it. It's tresorhouse.ca. So that's www.tresorhouse.ca. Welcome, Jessica. Thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Melissa. It's so great to be on this side of the interview chair.
I know, right? That's how I felt when you did mine. See, Jessica pre-records her podcast, and she also has video, which is cool. But since my show's live, we're just doing the radio part. Yeah, so you can't see us. But I'm glad that you said yes. Your story is pretty actually incredible. So in your own words, I'm just going to let you share your story and how you ended up doing the work that you're doing today.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. It's quite a long story, so buckle up or feel free to interrupt me, Melissa, at any time.
Okay. No problem.
Clarification.
Go ahead.
Well, I think I'll start my story back in just young adulthood and growing up. And just because I feel like it's so important, and so many of us probably feel this way, where somewhere along the way, we lost our sense of self-worth. We lost our confidence. In middle school years, high school years, we just want to fit in, and we can take some of the comments personally. And no matter how we grow up, we're being programmed, basically, as a child. Our subconscious mind is being programmed. And so sometimes we adopt the beliefs that are very hurtful, but we continue to kind of internalize them and live according. Absolutely. And so for much of my life, that's how I felt. I did not feel confident. I did not feel worthy. I felt like I was wasting people's time. But I just thought that was the way it is, because it was a deep belief. And I thought, well, this is just life. This is what the experience is all about.
Right.
So anyways, I carried on with my life. And then in 2015, I ended up being in a severe car accident. I don't remember the accident itself. All I remember is being in a parking lot and about to return home. And then the next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital to a nurse squeezing my hand saying, Jessica, can you hear me? You're in the hospital. You're in a car accident. And then they told me all of the injuries that I had sustained. And so, like you said, Melissa, I had several cuts in my face due to the shattered glass. I had broken my neck, my pelvis in 3 areas, and I had a traumatic brain injury. And now with that injury, I was advised of a whole lot of limitations on my life. And so I was advised that I probably would never be able to live independently again. And so that I should consider putting my dog up for adoption, because I was back independent at that point, and I didn't have the mental function to be able to care for something else. That I probably wouldn't be able to go back to school to finish my post-secondary education, because I was in my 3rd year of my Bachelor of Business Administration at that time. That I would never be able to go back to work. And then with all of that, of course, it's kind of like, good luck with a social life, because, with all of that, who would really want to stick around and, maintain any sort of friendship? And so that's what I was faced with. But one day, I remember I was just sitting there in my hospital bed. Now, I stayed in the hospital for a month and a half to be able to be on the recovery floor. And one day I was just looking out the window, and I was having that moment that we hear so often that people have when they're facing death. That moment when they start thinking back of their life in regret, wondering why they didn't take those chances, or why they didn't do that, or why they just didn't smile more, or eat the popcorn, or eat the cake, or whatever it was. Well, I was having that moment, and not because my life was in any physical danger anymore, but because life as I knew it seemed to be ending for me, because I was back independent. And so I was reflecting back on my life, wondering, why didn't I take that chance? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I say yes to this? But then something else happened. I didn't have any contradicting thoughts. And so those thoughts of, well, you're not worth it, you're not good enough, but who do you think you are? You would never do that. Those thoughts weren't even there anymore. And that left me feeling 2 ways. First, a little bit abandoned, because there I was, not knowing who I was anymore, feeling like I had lost my identity. And the things that I had used to qualify myself, the things that I thought Like, I thought me and my thoughts were one, I thought they had my back. And so I was just craving comfort, craving to find myself. And those thoughts were like nowhere to be seen or heard. And so then I felt angry. I felt angry because I could not believe that I had let so much of my life go, and I had let so much of those thoughts control the way that I responded to circumstances in my life and the chances that I took. And so I made a promise to myself that no matter how I was going to recover, I was not going to let them hold so much weight in my life anymore. And that was my first aha moment in my accident, that your thoughts are only as real as you make them.
How long in the process?
We're the ones thinking them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How long after the accident were you starting to have these realizations? Like, did you go through a long period of depression or anger or the why me's, that we do when something terrible happens? We do that, why did this happen to me kind of thing. Were you sitting in that for a long time before you started to have these realizations, or was it pretty quickly coming to you?
Right. This realization that I had in the hospital bed was quite early on. It was probably 3 weeks in. But to say that I had that mindset the whole time, no, that would be a lie. Because yes, of course, I had moments of being like, why me? Why did this happen? I'm not supposed to be here. Like, there were ups and downs, like, absolutely. And there were times that I felt, almost about to give up and hopeless. But that thought kept me true. I do have some memories of when I was in the coma. Now, it's not like beautiful pictures or seeing anything really, but it was a significant enough memory for me that made me believe that, wow, if that is what is waiting for me after this life, after this physical life, then I really don't have anything to lose. And so if I go out and want to chase my wildest dreams and end up failing, that's okay. I cannot fail bad enough in this life to not return there. And it was a beautiful experience for me. And so I feel like it kind of granted me a freedom in this life. And I operated for the rest of my recovery, and anytime I face myself, even to this day, with hard situations, I just remind myself that this is an experience. And that in itself helps me, to overcome whatever kind of challenge that I'm facing and open up to other possibilities, knowing that I can step away from this and I can look at what's going on objectively, realizing that it's an experience, so then I can make a better decision on how to move forward.
Yeah, that was actually very powerful for experience for you to have, to realize. And I can see how that could give you a sense of freedom, right? Because we get so trapped in our own brains and about our own thought process. And you said something early on, you're like, it starts to happen about, when we're in middle school, around that age is when we start to have all these self-doubts and, we want to fit in and we take what everybody says so personally. And I know it's crazy because that is, I think, exactly when it really happens. And I witnessed it with my niece, who is now in 8th grade, but I noticed a change in her in 6th grade when she first entered middle school about her peers that she didn't have about. She had so much self-confidence about herself before that. And it was like I was witnessing it, because now being on the other end of it and being aware of it, as we are, you, me, and the people like us who do this kind of inner work, we can see it right away. We could see it in other people. And so it was like wild to see her go through this, which I know is normal as a young teenager trying to fit in, about having all these worthiness issues. Like, am I good enough as my peers? It's crazy that happens to us. Yeah, so when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I totally get it.
Well, absolutely. And especially like in those, all your friends, they're comparing grades, and then, oh my gosh, you have to do gym class. Like, gym class was the worst if you weren't an athlete, seriously. And so there's just so many things where we're pinned up against our peers. And so we feel like we're not good enough.
We feel like, and we carry it into
And
adulthood.
then we just keep being exactly on a repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, until we start to become aware of it, right? Because it's all awareness.
Yeah, it's all awareness. And then once we become aware of it, then we can look at, because you talk about manifesting also, you're all big on the manifesting abundance also. So then we're aware of how we are self-creating the situations, the experiences, the things that are showing up in our life because of our own feelings of worthlessness. We don't feel worthy of those things that we say we want. And God, I would say the majority of people have experienced that at least at some point in their life, right? I mean, so do you feel like the accident, like, I want to ask it the right way. Not that you're happy that it happened, obviously, because you suffered a trauma, but do you feel like the accident was a catalyst for you shifting and changing everything about your mindset and who you were before it?
I think so. For sure. And yes, like I don't want to, it was a very difficult time, but I do believe in retrospect, it was like a blessing in disguise because it did send me on a path of, that I would have never imagined for myself before.
Yeah, because we don't want to say, like, let's hope for an accident, because that's not what we want. Like, you want to get all this before the accident happens to you, right? Because, I mean, I can't even imagine, especially with the amount of physical trauma that you had to recover from. How long was the physical recovery for you from the date of the accident?
So I was in, like, full-time recovery for 3 years. After the accident. And so by what I mean by full time, like I was back living with my mom. I was not working, and I was doing daily therapies for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been.
So it was a long time, definitely.
Well, that must have been taken a lot of courage for you and to talk to yourself to recover. Like, how did you talk to yourself and talk yourself through it? Because that's a long time, especially for a young person to be going through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was already a Reiki practitioner or level 1 prior to the accident. Okay. So I was kind of interested in energy work. I knew the power of, spirituality and like meditation and all of that, journaling. And so I kept doing that throughout my recovery. And I started YouTubing mindset material and joining other like mindset like 5-day launches or like whatever kind of masterclass that I can get my hands on. And so I was like always educating myself. I was always journaling. I was always meditating. I spent a lot of time in nature because I was able to keep my dog. And so I would take her out for like 3-hour walks. And like, yes, I was recovering. So there was still pain involved, but it was like, I really practiced mind over body. Mm-hmm. And I just kept going and made sure that I went out every day. I mean, obviously, because I needed to take the dog out. And even that, I feel like that was itself. I mean, animals are such a blessing in our life. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like a guardian angel for, to get me out of the house all the time. And so, so I felt like those activities kind of helped me get through and helped me connect with who I knew I was, who I felt like I had gotten a glimpse of who I was, like the bigger picture. Mm. And then just holding this thought in my mind that like your thoughts are only as real as you make them. And so when I would have like the negative thoughts or the doubts, like I would kind of just remind myself of being like very mindful of like what you're thinking because you are creating that. And so think twice about it.
Yeah, animals are very, very helpful in your healing. So I'm glad you got to keep your dog. I'm sure that helps in your healing a lot. Just having a boy or girl, him or her.
It was a girl.
It was a girl.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm bet having her, because she could also feel your energy and probably wanted to help keep your spirits up, right? They know when we're sad. They know when we're frustrated or angry or upset. So having her was probably such a gift when you were going through this. Did you have a lot of outside support? Because you said at one point when you were describing what happened, like, oh my God, thinking of your future, like, who's going to want to stick around for me now, for friends and relationships and stuff. Did you have a lot of support on the outside?
Yeah, you know what? I actually ended up having a lot of support, and I ended up I moved back to my hometown, and so a lot of my friends from high school had moved away. But the ones that were still here, we kept in contact, and so I was still able to hold a social life. I actually started my own group because I was vegan, and so I started a vegan community here, and so I started hosting events myself, and I had a great support team, like, for my rehabilitation. And we're in a small community, and so it was like everybody knew each other, everybody connected well together, and so I do feel like I had a really strong community support, and that makes all of the difference.
Oh my God. Yeah, it does. It really does. That's good that you had that community support. We need it. That's why so many suffer, because if they feel isolated and they don't have anybody, it makes it harder, especially when you have something like you had to recover from. You need your people to surround you and help lift you up. Okay, so I'm looking at the clock, and I just realized that we're almost coming to the halftime mark, and I want to talk about your book and your podcast and all the amazing things you're doing. So let's take our break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk all about that. So guys, stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes with Jessica.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Everyone has a story. I have a story. You have a story. We all have a story. As I see it, you have 3 choices. Allow your story to define you, use it to excuse you, or utilize it as a method to empower you. It's your life. You have the power. You choose. Rewrite your story on finduniquelyyou.com.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Hey everybody, and welcome back. If you're just joining me, I have author and podcaster Jessica West with me. And so Jessica, I was thinking, you were talking about before the break, your recovery process and how long it took and all the work that you were doing. So from when your body was healed enough, what was your next step? Did you move back into independent living? And then I want to segue into like what inspired your podcast and what inspired your book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So after the 3-year recovery period, I did move on my own, independently, brought my dog with me, and then I started full-time work, actually. I completed my bachelor's, so I finished that online. I'm so thankful for technology that we can do that nowadays.
Yeah.
And so I had completed my...
It's great that we have
So
that.
once I completed my degree, exactly, yeah. I was able to go back to work full-time. It was a year contract, and so I thought to myself, you know what, if I can't handle it, that's fine. It's only 1 year.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. But my boyfriend was very much an entrepreneur at heart, and so I started brewing my own kombucha because, you know, it's an ancient elixir, it's fermented foods. I mean, I loved kombucha. I didn't find the flavors that I wanted locally, so I started brewing my own. And then my boyfriend was like, well, you know, you should just make a business out of it and start selling those. And eventually, you know, after hearing that for a little bit, I was like, you know what, maybe I could. And so I started making my own. I started selling at the farmers markets. And so when my contract ended, I ended up going full-time into my kombucha business. That in 2 years, I grew it to 24 stores around northeastern Ontario. Yeah. And it was amazing. And then during that time, I started enrolling in different mindset programs and really started falling in love with mindset material and just the thoughts that we think, again, relating to the aha moment that I had in the hospital. I was like, I really want to be able to share this information with people. I came across information about self-image. And this is when I want to go back to some of those beliefs that we hold of ourselves that are on repeat, but they make us feel unworthy. But the self-image is the beliefs that we hold of ourselves, and we can't achieve anything greater than the belief that we hold of ourselves. And when I learned that was huge for me, because I was like, whoa, you know, we are creating our life based on the self-image that we hold. And if we want to manifest anything, we need to start looking within first to figure out, what do I believe to be true for myself? And so I kind of started going backwards.
Yeah, so you have to, though. I think we all have to do that. Yeah. I think when you start finding and start doing the, you know, the digging, the internal digging, you're like, oh, I see. Okay, now I need to go back. I need to see where this came from, why this belief is I hold this belief, what has shown up in my life because I've held this belief. I mean, that's why when I'm doing the gratitude workshop, the first week is worthiness. And self, because we have to build on that. You have to build on your worthiness, right? Because like you said, you can only manifest at the level that you feel deserving of what it is you want. And if you feel like you don't deserve anything or you feel worthless inside, what is your life going to look like on the outside? So I totally get why you went back. Go ahead. So now, sorry to interrupt, but I had to share that.
Yeah,
okay,
no.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's so good. It's like my favorite topic. Yeah. So I went back looking at everything, looking at, okay, why was this happening in my life? Like, where was it originating from? Realizing that, you know, it was myself. And then I just wanted to do more. I wanted to know more. I wanted to share more with people. And so then I felt like naturally the business started to shift. I no longer wanted to put as much effort in distributing the kombucha, that I wanted to pull that so that I can share what I'm really passionate about, which is sharing this information with others. And so I turned to an online model. So I now teach others to make kombucha themselves at home if they want to make the ancient elixir themselves. And I'm a mindset coach. And so I enrolled in a coaching certification program. And that is where I met my 3 amazing co-authors. And we decided to collaborate on our book, Manifesting with Purpose.
Yeah. I saw your video when I was going through, preparing for the show, and I was looking at your website. I saw that you had a course for those who would be interested in making their own kombucha, and I thought, oh, that's really cool for people that would, instead of just going out to purchase it, you can learn how to make it for yourself at home. And I thought, oh, what a really, really good idea. But, so I just wanted to mention that before we talk about the manifesting with purpose. So you met your co-authors, and there's 4 of you, correct? Four women who wrote it together, who sat down and wrote this together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 of us.
So what did you guys, how did you brainstorm the idea? Where did you say, oh, we need to share our own life experiences? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was so easy to work together. It was great. So we were part of a mastermind community because we were all going to be coaches. And so we were all supporting each other through that. And then one day, as we were wrapping up the call, I just said, hey, ladies, would you ever like to write a book together? Because each of us had a book within ourselves. We started, taking notes. We knew what it is that we wanted to say. But coming together to do it, for the first time, so we can really, dip our toes into, the publishing industry, know what it's all about, and we can learn it together and support one another through it. It was so perfect. And so we hopped on it right away. We said yes. Within a week, we had, booked appointments with different publishers to figure out who we wanted to go for. And so because we were all coaching a similar program, we all wanted to empower women using the power of their mind. And so it was very easy to just ask one another, okay, what do you want to speak about? And it was all parts of the program, everything that we've been through, but we each latched on to something different, which makes it so beautiful. And so our book is really like a mindset program in it, but each of us share what really hit home for us. And we did it in a way that when the reader reads it, they're actually going through the process of manifestation. It might be a different chapter written by a different author, but it still follows each other in order. And I think that's so unique for a collaborative book.
Yeah, no, that sounds really, really interesting. And I know you have it laid out where people can follow along because people hear, oh, I've heard manifest, it's kind of a buzzword and law of attraction and all that stuff. And they don't really get it. They don't really understand what it means. You think, oh, I say I want something and it magically just shows up. And yeah, if only it were that simple, right? You need it's like a formula like anything else, right? It's that you have to kind of start doing. It's like, I compare it to when you work your body out, right? You can't just say, I want to be in shape and have toned muscles and not work out. You have to work out. You have to practice. And manifesting is a practice. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And people like you, for example, and your co-authors who are coaches, and this is the work that you do, you help guide your readers on step-by-step how to implement a process that will work for them in their lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Melissa, I'm so glad you talked about manifesting because, and when I speak to others, I really love saying this point that you will only find the word manifesting in our book on the title page and in the introduction. It is not written anywhere in our chapters, and that's because when we came to the point of writing our title and we all wanted to have manifestation in it, we needed to put the brakes on. I said, well, hang on a second. None of us mentioned manifestation within our chapters. Yes, we're talking about it, but if we're going to title it manifestation, then we need to define it. So we define manifestation as bringing an idea into physical reality. That's what it is on a simple term. And so I like to tell people, although there are levels to manifestation, we are doing it already every day.
Right.
People can think about making dinner, for example. You have an idea of what you want to eat on the screen of your mind, and then you perform the action to cook dinner, and then dinner is served. And so that usually manifested dinner. How many times do you do that in your life already? And so can you accept that you are already a manifester? And if you accept that belief, then maybe you can manifest something bigger that much easier by knowing that you're already doing it. Maybe it takes a little more effort, but it is possible for you, like everything else that you've manifested in your life.
Right. Yes, and we're doing it on the regular, whether we're aware of it or not. And that's why when I started with the postcards, I didn't know I wanted a book at first. Like, I just like to have the postcards, and I like to take pictures of them and share the stories. Like, that's all I knew I wanted to do, right? I didn't know anything else beyond that. And then, of course, the seed was planted, and things happened, and no coincidences, right? As I'm actively doing this, what's happening? I'm meeting the right people. I'm finding the right information. So everything is taking me to my next step in what I'm doing now because I'm actively creating. And you talk about the same thing. We're doing it on the regular, most of us in an unconscious way. And that's why a lot of the things that come into our life are things that we don't want. Because what happens when we're hit with something that's stressful? We obsess, we think about it, we go over it, we talk about it a million times. So what do you think we're doing? We're putting more of that out there. So more of it comes back to us. So we're just saying, you're saying, I'm saying, let's shift that. Let's shift it. Focus, changing your thoughts. Don't become so attached to your thoughts, which is what you originally started saying when we were first talking about how you became so aware of, I am not my thoughts. And that's huge to get, I think, that you got that so quickly after your accident.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the ways why I believe it's such a blessing. But let's talk about the brain for a moment, too, because whatever we program in the brain just wants to prove itself right? So if we're thinking negative all the time, the brain's like, oh, okay, let me prove me right. Let me look for more negative in the environment around me, and then you're going to see that negative and be like, see the world negative, but it originates with the thought. And so knowing that, we can program our brain, that subconscious mind, to start looking for the things that we want, and it's already here. It's just that we aren't aware of it. And so once you tell your brain, you give your brain a command that you want something, it will seek out opportunities. And so nothing in your environment directly has to change. So there's no magic about this. But you will start to maybe listen to something and be like, I wonder if that can be an opportunity. Maybe I'll find out more about it. And then you just start going into areas that you would have never done before had you continued to think negatively. And so you're just opening yourself up to other opportunities. I mean, that's why I love it in manifestation. You know, we say you don't need to know the how. Just tell, just say what you want and allow yourself to be led.
Yeah, I love that you said that your brain loves to be proven right. So once you have something in your mind, you look for it. And that was one of the reasons that something that I discovered through photography, right? And that's why I wanted to use it in the gratitude workshop, is because I'm forcing people, in a fun way, forcing people to use what we have in our hand every day to look for those things in your life that you're already grateful for. So what happens is you know that you're doing this, you know that you started this project. So during your day and whatever you're doing, you're going to start unconsciously looking for those things. And you're going to become more aware of those things already in your environment or what you see when you're out and about. And it shifts that energy of lack to abundance. So I love that you said that, because that was one of the big ahas that I got, that I wanted to include a visual component in the gratitude work that I'm doing.
Yeah, and I love gratitude. There's actually a chapter in our book just about gratitude, because it is so powerful when manifesting. I mean, it allows you to get into that high vibration, you know, and you attract what you're vibrating on. And so it just allows you to almost like bypass everything if we just look for gratitude in our life. And I like to say, one of the best things that I heard of gratitude before was a definition, and they said, gratitude is like realizing that everything that you have today, you can just as easily not have tomorrow. And I just love it, because we cannot find something then not to be grateful for, right? And it could be like the simplest thing, like, a bottle of hand cream or something, but like, what if you didn't have that tomorrow? When we start thinking about that, then we can tap into that frequency that much quicker.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. We're all made up of energy, and we're just looking for the ways to raise our energy so that we can live a more joyful and fulfilling life, because that's basically what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants joy and love in their life and validation. I mean, it's not that hard what we want. We make it a lot harder than it has to be, which brings me to, you mentioned it earlier, you're talking about your worthiness. You have something that I saw on your website, which I thought was really cool, and you call it a facelift. And it's that your self-image is the belief you hold of you, and that belief dictates your life experience. So you want to talk a little bit about your facelift that you put together? Because I thought, what a good title for that. I really like that. Go ahead, I'll let you share about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm glad you love the title. I thought it was so cheeky and fun.
It is. That's what I like about it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's really about uplifting your self-image. Just like you said, we can only experience according to our self-image. And so it's a program where I really allow people to hone in to their current self-image. And so we do a lot of self-awareness practices. We start to uncover some of those limiting beliefs that we have on repeat, and we start challenging them, because a lot of the limiting beliefs, if we actually take it down, like write it down, pen to paper, we can probably ask, like, well, is this true? Like, this sounds like a whole lot of nonsense. And then we can almost prove it false ourselves and get ourselves out of that situation. Now, it's not to say that the limiting belief is not going to be there anymore. It's just that we get better and better and better at being able to push past, like those thoughts and the self-doubts that we have. I don't think the goal is to ever get rid of them completely, because we can't, because we're all human. But as you continue to push past them, to kind of tell that part of your brain, like, hush, hush, I'm taking it from here, then we can get better and better at just pushing past and continuing to go to greater heights. And so that's really what the program is about. And we do a lot of cultivating self-acceptance, because I really believe that we need to be able to accept where we're at, because if we don't accept it, we're holding resistance. And if we're holding resistance, that's a really tough energy. Nothing could really get through. We're closing ourselves off to other opportunities, and so releasing all of that. And so I really loved the play on word, facelift with the spa, because I'm thinking it's really learning to relax into yourself. We all do at a spa, right? We're just relaxing. We're letting our worries go. Well, that's what we're doing. We're cultivating that relationship with ourselves, gaining that self-awareness, and then we're starting to look at our self-image and who we need to be to accomplish our desires. And so there is a manifestation component, because we're creating our desires, or the end version of ourselves that we need to be. And we're going to build the self-image of that end version, because if we're not that end version and we're continuing to be our current version with our current self-image, well, we're going to continue to get the results that we're getting right now. And so no change is going to happen. And so I help, bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to go. And it all happens with you and the inner work.
Yeah. And it does get easier the more you do it, in the sense that, you'll catch yourself a lot quicker with the thoughts coming, and you're like, oh, look, there it is again. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. That self-doubt that comes up, or whatever negative thing you're telling yourself, you catch yourself so much faster, which is really nice. So that does make it easier to move through it. And it's interesting, too, what you said about resistance. I learned the hard way, which most of us do, that when you resist something that is, and whatever you're going through, whether it's a painful experience and, resisting whatever happened or is happening, you're adding so much more stress and pain on yourself because you can't change certain things that have already happened that are painful, right? But we resist them. But if you can go into it and accept it, that helps you so much better on your healing journey, whatever you're healing, whether it's physical or emotional. So it's interesting that you said that about resistance, because we are blocking the other things from coming in when we're being resistant, which I really believe, and I know you do too. Oh my Lord, I can't believe how fast this time has gone by. I didn't even get a chance to talk about your podcast, which I was on. Thank you so much for having me. So share a little bit about your Empower From Within podcast and what made you want to continue with your work through the podcasting.
Yes, thank you. Yes, oh my gosh, I love the podcast. I'm having so much fun with it. So I just launched it on January 4th of this year, and every Wednesday I come out with another episode where I interview an amazing person, such as yourself, Melissa, to share their story, their personal story, and what they're doing in their life, because they're inspiring people and really encouraging people to live the life that they want. And it's just really to share inspiring messages. I interviewed all three of my co-authors in the earlier episodes too, if you're curious about hearing more of the book as well. And I recently introduced a series of inner work because I really want to share more inner work practices. And so this is topics of like body code, energy work, breathing, breathwork techniques. We also talked about the 75 Hard Challenge, because that is really like it's a spiritual challenge. It's not only physical, there's a big spiritual component, which is pretty awesome. And so I like to share ways that people could start doing the inner work, because everything begins within, and then we can really start empowering ourselves. And I think by hearing people's stories, we relate so much more to stories. And, I'm hoping that whoever listens could, no matter where they're at, they can hear someone and be like, well, if it's possible for them, maybe it's possible for me. And that's really the intent with it, just to help people start empowering themselves so that they can live the life that they want. Because, I really believe we're all here to live that life. We're all deserving of that life, and we can achieve it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's the reason that I wanted to do my show. Our shows are similar, is that we interview people doing this kind of work, because I like to introduce people to people like you and some of the other guests that I have on, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to resonate with the message from a certain guest. We may all be saying the same things, but we're saying them from our different experiences and our different backgrounds and our different perspectives. So somebody may resonate with me on one way, but somebody else may not. They'll resonate with what you're doing, So that's why I love doing my show and having people like you on talking about what you're doing. And I know you do a similar style. You interview your guests who are doing different things. So it's really cool. And the more of it, the better, right? I believe the more good stuff we put out there, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Everything's going to resonate with people differently, And even if you keep hearing the same thing, that's what I felt like getting into personal development work. A lot of it is the same thing, but it's told in a different way. And so one of those are going to click for you, but maybe not all of them. I experienced that where I'm like, oh, I've been told this for my past 3 mentors, but it never actually clicked until now. And so sometimes it's just the way that someone says something, or you feel that they can really relate to your story, like they really get me. And then it really starts sinking in. I see us all as like, all light workers just working towards healing the world.
Yeah, and it's an inside job. Right? You just got to start from within. You can't heal anything on the outside if you're all sick and sad and negative inside, because you're going to bleed all over everybody else. That's why, I don't know who originally said it, but that saying, hurt people people because they're hurting inside, right? So we want healthy people. We want to be healthy inside so that we can help facilitate whatever message we're saying to others so that they can heal themselves. So the world will be a better place for everybody, I think. So I like to.
Absolutely. And that's why I feel like...
Go ahead.
That's why I feel like the power of self-image is so important, because just like you're saying, hurt people. And so when we keep that concept of like everybody's operating within their own self-image, so we don't necessarily have to take things so personally, right? Like if someone does us wrong, then we can just be like, that is really an internal struggle of that person, and I don't really need to let that affect me. I don't need to take it so personally if someone makes like a rude comment or something. Because it's not about us. It's about something internal going on within them.
Exactly. So, Jessica, tell people the best way to find you, to connect with you.
Yeah, they can connect with me on Instagram at tresorhouse.ca. And I know you spelt it earlier. That is TRESORHOUSE.ca. On my website, and they can also subscribe to the Empower From Within podcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you and speaking with you today. Thank you. Okay, everybody, please check her out and check out our show together on her podcast. It was July 26th it dropped. All right, everybody. I'll see you next week. And thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.